Welcome to the High Fae Housewives podcast. I'm Blakely.
And I'm Kylie.
We're currently working towards our Masters in the Maasverse. Our current course is focused on Crescent City, House of Sky and Breath by Sarah Janet Maas. Today we're chatting chaps 33 through 40.
Warning. While we may be your silly gal pals, we don't recommend listening to this podcast around little ears or ears that may be offended because we say bad words and shitty things. I want to read some shitty things to you.
Oh, can't wait.
Shitty things as in some shitty reviews about Crescent City, House of Sky and Breath.
Oh, I can't wait.
I just want to read a couple of them to you. This is a 5-star book for both of us. So this 1-star review says, this is legitimately the biggest disappointment probably ever. Just no. So SJM used some variation of the phrase balls tightening 6 times in this book. 1 star. Sounds like 6 stars to me.
Who doesn't love a good ball tightening? What a square.
I like this one. Should have stepped on a Lego instead of reading this. That would have been less painful than these 800 pages because what the fuck was this?
Oh, Sarah.
There's another one that says too many balls tightening in this book. And do you know whose balls don't tighten? Baxian. So this 1 star is for him. Another good one was, yes, girl, give us nothing. And one of my other favorites, haven't sat in stunned silence quite like this since I found out my dad had run away to Thailand. That being said, now relax those shoulders, unclench that jaw, clench that clam, and let's get into it. Chapter 33. Rune learns the Hind is keeping tabs on him when she mentioned his standing poker game and then asks the Harpy why she is there. The Harpy is a creep and tells him that she wanted to survey the goods, looking to Ethan and Rune, but Rune is like, no thanks, got a lady to marry. The Hind points out that he canoodled with the fawns, so she's clearly keeping tabs on him, so Rune asks if it was a shakedown, but the Hind just told him that his super duper hot dad told him that they should meet. You know the Hind was like, ugh, the Autumn King is such a hottie.
Of course. Who doesn't feel that way?
The Harpy is then a bitch to Ethan about his text messages with Bryce since she snooped on his shit. She taunts him about pining in secret for years for Bryce and wishing he'd met her first, hoping that she'd notice his ball game. Then points out that his self-loathing. The Hind brings everyone back to the game at hand and wins cards and then leaves, but not before Rune tells the Harpy there's reapers that will stoop to fucking her. Sick burn. The Hind then sends haughty cousin Hormac her love. Right. Back at Bryce's apartment, Ethan and Rune ask what happened because Bryce looks like shit. Rune tells them that Ephraim and his clique are already there and that they played cards with them. Hunt's phone goes off at that moment for a Triari assembled text message and has to take a rain check on dicking down his lady friend. That's when Rune says, Bryce smells weird, and story time begins. So Rune is the other person that has pointed out Bryce's scent notes before I mentioned in the last episode. So it's only fitting that he immediately notices Bryce's scent change after her and Hunt verbally acknowledge that they're mates.
I like that you're scent tracking for us all.
Nobody has to do it but me because, you know, so many people fought with me over it. I'm like, I have to know everything about scents in this fucking series.
This is your new mountain, okay? It's scents.
Smells. Love it.
I just want you to know when you said Ethan hopes he'll notice his ball game. After those reviews, all I thought about was tightening balls the whole time. And then I'm like picturing Ethan's tightened balls and I'm like, why? Why? Is this my life?
You're picturing Ethan's balls? I was thinking like Ethan knows ball. Like he knows pining.
No, I knew your intention and that made sense. But after just talking about balls.
Well, that wasn't even my intention. I just laughed at my own joke, my unintentional joke.
The Hind and her bloodlines 101. Reminder, we only talk about the book that we're in the series, as of course all the other books in the other 2 series in the Maasverse, but let's talk about the Hind's appearance. A gold ring crowned with a square, clean-cut ruby, you say? Now, is there any other rubies in the Maasverse? There sure are. Aelin and rubies are often associated with each other, whether it's her flame, her slippers, and of course the gold ring sword with a large ruby in its hilt. But what ring did she give Rowan? A thicker ring with an elegantly cut ruby within the band itself. Now, Ruin goes on saying the Hind is a spitting image of Luna with her upswept
Hair?
updo. I don't know what it's called. Shouldn't you? Okay. The regal angle of her neck and jaw, coldly serene as the moon. All she needed was a pack of hunting hounds at her side. Now, if we're going with Luna as Deanna from the Throne of Glass world, then the relation we know she has is to Aelin, a distant aunt, because Aelin being a descendant of Mala's line.
Maybe Lydia and Hypaxia are Mala and Mab reincarnate, and they're about to do the Parent Trap too. You know, the old switcheroo?
Mm-hmm. They're going to go to...
I think that that's the whole plot line for all three of these series. Parent Trap too.
Now I'm just picturing them at camp.
Lydia just fucking doing arts and crafts.
In your honor, a royal flush.
Yes, because she would be so fancy too. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. It could work.
Call me, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
So the Hind's golden eyes are mentioned with her appearance. And we know she has witch in her bloodline, thanks to her mom, even though she takes after her dad. But a reminder of what witch had golden eyes. Manon, Manon, Blackbeak. They're pointed out a lot in the Throne of Glass series for Valg.
I know. I have a very hard time with that one.
They're pointed out a lot in the Throne of Glass series for the Valg and Manon. Kael and Fleetfoot had golden eyes too, but I'm pretty sure they're neither witches nor Valg. Who's to say? But why do the witches in Aurelia have golden eyes? Because they are Valg. Quick lesson on who the Valg are in relation to witches. Ghislaine told Manon this story in Queen of Shadows. And reminder, Ghislaine is one of Manon's 13. So a millennia ago, when the Valg broke into our world, witches did not exist. It was the Valg and the Fae and humans. But the Valg were demons, I suppose. They wanted our world for their own, and they thought a good way to get it would be to ensure that their offspring could survive here. The humans weren't compatible, too breakable, but the Fae. The Valg kidnapped and stole whatever Fae they could, and because your eyes are getting that glazed look, I'm going to jump to the end and say the offspring became us, witches. The Iron Teeth took after the Valg ancestors more, while the Krakens got more of the Fae traits. The people of these lands don't want us here, not after the war, but the Fae King Brannon didn't think it was right to hunt us all down. So he gave us the Western Wastes, and there we went until the Witch Wars made us exiles again. So obviously the Hind and Hypaxia are generations away, but that's how the witches from Aurelia were initially created. We have to remember the Valg are still players in this game.
Chapter 34. Hunt was back at the Comitium at Celestina's request. We got to witness a meeting between Celestina and Ephraim, which was as awkward as season 1 of The Office, plus a nice kumbaya with Sandriel's old Triari. Bryce was giving everyone a rundown on what happened at the Bone Quarter. Everyone was horrified to learn that the Underking eats second light. They also wanted to get to the bottom of the Reapers. Bryce opened the door, and Sabine grabbed her throat and called her a see you next Tuesday and hurled her across the room. She was big pissed because she wanted Bryce to stay the fuck out of Wolf business by harboring the exiled Ethan. Probs going to rob her of her birthright. Ethan and Sabitch get into it and was like, catch me outside, let's fucking go.
I know we're thinking of that girl that says that, but I immediately think about her segment with Dr. Phil. And so,
Yes.
like, that line reminds me of Dr. Phil more than Bad Barbie. Bad Bobby. Sabine said Perry's a moon-eyed fool, and to be moon-eyed means you're infatuated. So is this foreshadowing that we just didn't catch?
Probably. Let's add it to the list.
Speaking of Ethan, that annoying guy, he's like, I need to know. I need to fucking know. Ethan needs therapy. That is what Ethan needs. Like, he's so fucking unhealed, and I think that's why I hate him. Like, what can you do if Connor was already fed to the Underking at this point? Like, he needs to get his fucking head on straight, call Gloria, and figure out how he can change some things. Work on this.
Ethan has a very selfish outlook. Like, he just is concerned about what he's worried about and does not see the full picture of things. And it's a hard watch.
And it consistently plays that way through the series, and so it makes him so insufferable.
I don't,
Unsufferable, insufferable.
but maybe too. You never know. Back at the comitium, Isaiah and Hunt were catching up, and he saw Bryce's contact was now Bryce sucks dick like a champ. He tells him he's happy for him, and then once he reads the vague message, he tells him to go. As Hunt was sneaking out, not only did Baxian clock him, but so did Celestina. Busted.
Do you think that Hunt should have told Celestina, like, what's the haps with Bryce?
Maybe, but I kind of feel like Celestina's overreacting to the whole thing. Like, what's Hunt gonna fucking do?
That's a really valid point. Like, what could Hunt do in that moment? It's
And
not like
like,
anything bad happened. Yeah, he should have been there for emotional support. I don't
but then that would look weird
It's tough.
anyway. And like,
There was no winning in this situation.
no, I think Celestina's a bitch, but whatever.
Everyone makes mistakes,
Yeah,
Everyone has those days.
they sure do. And that's us today, apparently. Can't talk.
Chapter 35. It is one big pissing contest. Ethan does get props for talking shit to Sabine and sharing her meeting Mordok moment with everyone. This was also news to Bryce because she definitely did not know who Danica's daddy was. Bryce taps into the cornering of Sabine with Ethan, calling out her flaws, then asking, I wonder how hard it would be to convince the Prime and the Den that Ethan is the bright future of the Valbaran Wolves. Sabine is not a good loser because she goes for a weapon, but Rune is basically one of Charlie's angels because he says nah and pulled his gun. And then Hunt's there too. But wait, Charlie's final angel also arrives because there's Baxian, ready to disable that bitch. And then she left because she sucks. There was a familiar ripple of charged air that filled the room when Hunt arrived. And Bryce is always sensing that power and identifying her official mate's presence in that way.
And also makes the case for the Karanam because the power, she's sensing it, which they have a shared power sitch. Throwing that out there.
Bryce is most shocked with the news that Mordok is Danica's father during the whole exchange. They could have trauma bonded over daddy issues together. Ethan and Baxian bark at each other a bit, so Bryce tells them to brawl on the roof. Hunt finds out that he has been caught sneaking out, and Charlie is not very happy. It's then that Ethan finally says yes to Rune's bestie proposal. Baxian wants to know why Sabine showed up, and then they gossip about her sexy session with Mordok. Hunt wants to know why Baxian showed up and is suspicious of him, but Bryce is like, you're going to fit right in. Hunt doesn't like that she said that because he doesn't think highly of Baxian, but Bryce is still stuck on her Maury Povich reveal of Danica's daddy's DNA test. They start talking about that crazy guy, the Underking, and his first light eating ways. Hunt is not impressed by her actions and jumping in front of his lightning, but our girl is a risk taker. And it helped that the Prince of the Pit suggested it. Bryce tells him that she's kind of relieved her soul doesn't go to the Bone Quarter, and Hunt tells her that he wants to be with her in the afterlife. Bryce noticed that he's in full protective mode now.
Truly. You calling the Underking, that crazy guy, got me a little bit. Wasn't expecting it. Crazy guy, the Underking. Chapter 36. Rune and Day had a meetup on the bridge. Rune talked a bit about Lily and how he misses her, and then let her know that they made the intel drop-off. Nearly got caught, but they did it. She asks by who, and he tells her Mordok, the Hind, and the Harpy. She stilled and told him that Mordok is a monster and tells her his whereabouts. Day tells him he says too much. Rune's mind apparently reached for hers without him realizing it. They both had a shit day. Day opens up a bit that people she works with are monsters, and she doesn't really have anyone to talk to. No friends and no support from fam. They have a little bonding moment about shitty dads, and they chat about the rebellion, and we learn that Day is a bit of a dreamer.
Because Lahaba was brought up, let's have a moment of silence for her. All right, carry on. We had our moment.
It was a good moment. So now it's time to talk about Ethan. We get into the Ethan and Bryce lore and how when he went to meet his brother at college, he met Bryce in the hall, not realizing that she was the one his brother was so infatuated with. He tried to let his brother do his thing, but it was like, if he doesn't do it, I'm going to, because he was convinced she would be his wife, mate, and mother of his kids. But his brother died, and Avi, him, and Bryce didn't talk for 2 years, and he claims he was able to work that shit out. But that remains to be seen.
Seeing how Flynn wrote "do not touch" on his shampoo makes me wonder if that would have prevented my 1 liter bottle of shampoo being stolen from a house party 15 years ago. People don't forget or forgive on that one because it was expensive shampoo. The 1 liter bottle, and someone stole it
Was
from a
it pure alt?
party. But
Was it
if I
pure?
wrote "do not touch," would it make a difference?
What brand was it?
Joico.
Joico. Mm.
It was the gold bottle, the restoration. So I
Mhm.
spent a little bit of extra money so I could have better hair considering I was platinum blonde.
What a choice.
There's a line about Ethan and it says he suspected that they might even be mates if he was right about that tug towards her. And that would be that, which I learned from my sister that there's a whole ass theory out there about Bryce and Ethan being mates. And I think that's absolutely crazy. Would you have ever thought Ethan was your true mate?
No. Is it?
No, this is a terrible plot line. Whoever, I'm not on board with that. I think his gut tug was just a really intense boner because she has a nice butt.
Yeah. He's a butt guy.
Gut tug, not
Sure.
butt tug.
No, it doesn't make that doesn't make any fucking sense. And it just feels so typical Ethan guy that in his head's like, oh, she's hot, so she's gonna be my wife and my mate. Like, shut the fuck up. No, she's not. Annoying. Ethan and Therian meet up, and Ethan asks if he could get him to the bone quarter, and he's like, no, not unless we want to be river beast food. Ethan really wants to know how his brother is, and Therian has an idea, but he isn't going to like it. And more importantly, neither will Legs. They're taking a little trip to the Mystics.
Every time I see the bone quarter, I think the boner quarter, and it's just absolutely ruined for me because nobody, like I said, is getting boned there.
No, I don't think so. There's no boners happening there.
Chapter 37. Bryce was a dancing queen at the studio with Juniper. She needed a way to disassociate after learning about what happens in the bone quarter. Juniper shares that someone else got principal over her again as a fuck you for calling rich jerk elitists monsters. She asked Bryce about a meal, but there is no movement. After class, Juniper left, so Bryce went to talk to Madame Kira. She asks if she could say anything, but she can't, and tells Bryce that Juniper has to face the consequences of her own actions. But Bryce has a terrible idea and calls the CCB using her not yet government name, Her Royal Highness Princess Bryce Dannon. What a mouthful of a name.
That is.
Hunt was sweaty because he was working out and listening to a book, not watching Cops. The Harpy interrupts his workout and summons him to Celestina. She escorts him to get in trouble and taunts him the whole way, but luckily he gets to slam the door in her face. Celestina asked him what's the haps and where did he go last night. He doesn't elaborate after she guesses it has to do with Bryce. Since he is being secretive Sally, she tells him he is to stay in the barracks for 2 weeks and commit to helping Baxian adjust and then dismisses him. He tries to talk to her, but says the wrong thing when he's like, Ephraim is not your master. I saw a lot of the 1-star reviews complaining about Hunt's punishment because it was 2 weeks. For him, it was punishment. And they were pointing out how, the juxtaposition between Micah and Celestina,
Right.
it's not a reason to give the book 1 star.
And he didn't even do anything of that bad. What? If
He's
she's a
saying
good
he
person,
went to help Bryce.
right?
The 1-star reads really got me. So Hunt said noted, and then he wonders if he did something to piss off Erd because he got 2 weeks there. And you know what? He did piss her off. He pissed Erd off by choosing his mate. And this is her punishing him.
I'm with you.
In the hall, Hunt saw the Hind. She asked if he was friends with Rune, Ethan, and Therian. She pointed out his clique was weird, and he's like, whatever you gotta say it to my face, bitch. And she points out that so many people of power from different species and houses are hanging out at Bryce's, and I think it's sheer jealousy. Baxian then shows up, and the Hind goes in on him next. I want to talk more about the Hind. So she was recruited by the Archangel herself to serve as her spy master, Sandriel. Lydia had been so young, barely into her 20s. She had just made the drop, had no apparent deep well of magic other than her swiftness as a deer shifter and her love of cruelty, which her love of cruelty sounds like a witch that we know.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no apparent deep well of magic. She descends from a witch. What if the Asteri kept her for her Valg ties when they saw those golden eyes? Valg ties with golden eyes. I'm a rapper.
You are. So that made Kai and I start talking about potential Valg and potential Valg descendants in the ACOTAR world and who we think is suspicious. Which one thing led to another, and Kai looked up the mythology of Maeve. And tell us what you found, Kai.
Reminder that Maeve is the Valg queen. And I found a question asking, why is Maeve important in Irish folklore? Well, during her reign, Queen Maeve's power meant that a man could not become king unless she bestowed him with the honor. For this reason, enthusiasts suppose that Maeve was fashioned as an allegory representing the land and Mother Earth. As evidence, folklorists point to the fact that a man could not take a throne without first honoring the land. Lore says she represents the Morgan, the goddess of war and fate. Maeve and the Morgan?
Which, as someone who's never liked Moore, this made me really giddy. And no, I don't hate Moore just because she's a blonde. I have other reasons. But let's start talking about what we know about Moore. She is Reese's cousin. Moore is my cousin in the loosest definition, but we are raised together. She's my only surviving family. Which, if you want to look at both of them as being other, which most people make the case or try to make the case for at least Reese being Valg or some part of it, that would make sense of being the loosest definition of a cousin. Then we look at Moore being the power of truth, is what people say her gift is. But I personally believe her gift is making people believe a truth or even weaving a new truth. Example, kind of like how Maeve did with Rowan and his fake mate. I think by the end of this, there will be justice for Eris with this gift. Just a thought. And one of the reasons I didn't like Moore is she was a love bomber to Feyre, and I have trauma with that, so I don't like it. And it felt like when Aelin was being tortured at the end, Maeve created this fake reality in her mind, pretending that they were besties and she was like love bombing her. Just like when she first met Maeve, she was love bombing her. It just feels very similar energies to me, and I don't like it.
The more we talk about Maeve and Moore, the more similar they are. It's interesting that in Irish folklore that the Morgan is known as the Queen of Fairies, and Maeve in the book is the Queen of the Fairies. So the Morgan is actually associated with a whole host of fairy beings. The best known of these fairies is probably the Banshee of Irish folklore. She is often associated with the Morgan in her various forms. It translates as fairy hill or fairy mound and is indicative of the connection between the goddess and the fairy beings. Landscape features such as mounds or burial chambers and bodies of water were considered to be entrances to the other worlds, including the worlds of the fairies and the dead. Sounds pretty similar to the Barrows in Wendelin and Throne of Glass and the Barrows in the Boat Quarter from the last episode. I just think this will all tie in with the void and hell and the book, The Queen of Many Faces. And I've talked about this book multiple times before, and I think it was a big hint to things. And I think it will tie in Maeve more and potentially another witch from Crescent City, which I think, given their bloodline, will somehow tie things to the Hind or Hypaxia. More so the Hind based on her golden ball eyes.
Stamp of approval. Boom. Chapter 38. Ethan, Therian, and Bryce were taking a little field trip to the Mystics, and Bryce was not impressed about it. But Ethan felt like his hands were tied, and the Oracle only sees the future, not the present, and he just needs to know what's up with Connor. They knocked on a Wizard of Oz-esque door, and they got let into some musty-ass place. Gandalf the Grey welcomed them in. Just kidding. He was some type of veneer, humanoid. He was wearing a gray robe and had a long white beard and had 4 rings of silver and gold that had small fire sprites in the center that were trapped in nearly invisible glass domes. Bryce tells the creep they need to consult his surfaces, and he says, "No problem, Bob," and ushers them into a different space. It was of 2 levels, crammed with tomes and scrolls, and had a great golden orb dangled in the center of the room, and beneath them were tubs built into the slate floor. There were 3 mystics in gross water, 1 male, 1 female, and 1 of both. The perfect balance.
So mystics are mentioned, and I think mystics most likely come from Aurelia. They are not mentioned in ACOTAR at all. But in Throne of Glass, it says the rituals the blue bloods did in their forests and caves, rituals in which pain was the gateway to magic, to opening their senses, oracles, mystics, zealots. While looking into where mystics are mentioned, I also saw this line about Petra Blueblood. Petra had always been odd, head in the clouds, but that was the way of the blue bloods. Mystics, fanatics, zealots. Makes me wonder if Petra was one of the witches who helped train Hypaxia. So it says, my tutors were from an old part of Pelion by the Reagan Sea. It rubbed off on me, I suppose. We do get one name later, but I don't know. It just seems like such a Petra Blueblood thing to do.
That's a good catch, yeah. Such a Petra Blueblood thing to do.
I feel like I really know her going on the Throne of Glass journey again.
Yeah.
There was writing on the floor. What language do you think it was in? Because the book says built into the floor beside them was a panel covered in a language she had never seen. My first thought was maybe it's Valg and the Princes of Hell are Valg, but more on this next chapter.
Yeah, because like it's obvious she would know, it would be the old language of the Fae. She would know that. So it's not that, it's something else. So I'm full. I agree with you. It could be Vogue.
Because it's not word marks either, because
No.
those are very specific to everything.
And
That's
she
the
would
only
know.
unknown language that I can think of that's like ancient that they talk about throughout.
I think you're right. Great transition here. Ethan made it rain on dem hoes, and the creep was like, "Awesome, let's get this party started." He was like, "Hey, babes, don't worry about them. They drift when they aren't being used, and fret not. Their fan bands get paid well." He began to flip some switches, and a full holographic replica of their solar system showed up. Bryce couldn't help herself and started grilling the guy. We learned that some people refer to him as the astronomer, and they don't see their families. It's a choice for them, and his thing is called an orrery. So let's get back into Crescent City Community College orrery, class 102. Okay, so the astronomer has a pretty damn cool orrery, and let's get into it. His is Magitech, so it's a combination of magic and tech, if you need me to explain that to you. Now we know the detail that it was made in a Velen long ago by craftsmen. The astronomer hasn't seen it, but he hears it's real nice, precise as his, if not more so. We know that there's one in ACOTAR in Reese's study. Chapter 3 of A Court of Silver Flames, Cassian is in Reese's office and he describes a massive working model of their world, the stars and planets around it, and some fancy things that were described to him, but he tuned out. Az was very interested. Reese built the model himself centuries ago. Not only could it track the sun, but also tell time, and allowed Reese to ponder the existence of life beyond their world and other things. And I want to point out, we learned that the Steri also have mystics, over 1,000 of them, which can't be good.
Not great. It's really interesting. Like, why would Reese have an orrery? Why would he have a need to have an orrery? Like, I understand why, obviously, the astronomer would, like, he's looking out there. And even the Autumn King, excuse me, the Thotham King,
There you go.
it makes sense because he wants to return their power to glory. But why does Reese have one?
So remember in the books where Reese says that his mom wanted to make sure that he had like a full education? I think there might be more to Reese's mother that meets the eye, and maybe she clued him in on some things about like the different worlds. Obviously, Reese knows. So, did something just strike in your brain? You looked because I
I'll
just
say it not on.
okay, because I just feel like she helped him clue him in on some things, and like he didn't seem at the end of this book, he doesn't seem that surprised that another person could world walk. So Ethan starts with his questions. Does his brother Connor Holstrom remain in the bone quarter, or has he passed through the dead gate? The astronomer told him it would cost him even more. Ethan agreed, and that he turned some more dials and used blood salt, which is disgusting. Bryce hated the place, and she wasn't quiet about it. The Mystics had to go real far to try and find Connor. It seemed like they were in the chasm. The person who answered back said no wolves have roamed these lands for eons. No wolf by the name dwells here, living or dead. We find out the person speaking to the Mystic is, in fact, Thanatos, the Prince of the Ravine. The Mystic keeps asking about Connor, but Thanatos wants to know who is asking, and a demon prince tells him, "Let me see them. Let them see me," and the Mystic's eyes flew open in the tank below. Now, in the Crescent City world, Thanatos is known as the Prince of the Ravine, which is the 4th level of hell. So let's talk about Thanatos in Greek mythology. First off, Thanatos translates to death in Greek, and Thanatos was the personification of death in Greek mythology. Now, before I get more into Thanatos and Greek lore, I want to mention his counterpart in Roman mythology is Mors, which means the personification of death. The Latin noun for death is mors, which is a derivative of moris, aka umbra mortis. Also, Mors is a real close to Moor, but I digress. Back to the Greek mythology. Thanatos is usually exclusively thought to be a peaceful death, compared to the Charis, which is a violent death, which, Charis is a human rebel group in Crescent City. Now, Thanatos has no father, but is the son of Nyx, aka Night, and the brother of Hypnos. In Homer's Iliad, he describes Hypnos and Thanatos as twin brothers, and they were charged by Zeus and Apollo. He was often regarded as merciless and hated by and hateful towards mortals and gods alike. So overall, not well liked in the Greek mythology world.
Not a great guy. People will
He's
probably
not,
give him like 2 stars.
yeah, he's not passing the vibe check right now either. So it tracks.
It's not like he necessarily passes the vibe check later. He just has good actions.
Yeah. But the Moors was interesting.
The second you said Moors, I was like, oh, tell me more.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 39. Thanatos was having a Star Wars-esque type of communication moment because he was a hologram. The astronomer started praying to Luna and was shaking like a little bitch. The Prince of the Ravine says he can smell starlight on you to Bryce and that she's the one his brother speaks about. Bryce said that she was just looking for a friend's soul and added a polite, "Your Highness." He's not very cool, more uncool, and kind of a dick. Ethan butts in, asking about his brother, but Thanatos goes on about his beloved pet getting killed. Turns out he did intentionally plant it. He tells Bryce, "You cost me a key link to Midgar. The shepherd reported faithfully to me on all it heard in the bone quarter. The souls of the dead talk freely of their world." Bryce mocks him, and he commends her for being a warrior, but he will have his revenge for his pet's death. Maybe I would relate to Thanatos the most because, I'm just, so into my animals. He's really upset about his pet.
Yeah. Or I'm thinking of plants too. You might be more of a Thanatos gal.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised by that. He's kind of a dick, so balances,
Mm-hmm.
So Thanatos had tightly curled black hair. It was cropped close to his head, displaying the handsome, unsmiling face above the powerful body bedecked in dark, ornate armor. And I just feel like him and his potential daughter have very similar fashion vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Thanatos does give us the gossip on Connor, and it was that an order was dispatched from the dark and he was not to be touched. Thanatos says unclear who gave that order, and only the Asteri would know if there was a way to help souls like Connor's. They can't help themselves with blurting shit out because up next is Therian asking about Emil's whereabouts. Thanatos is like, "I don't know her, and they are matters of their world." Therian drops the word Thunderbird, and that piqued Thany's interest because he mentioned the Asteri destroyed that threat long ago, and then is over this conversation. It goes dark in the room, so Bryce uses her starlight to light the room and sees a black pit where Thanatos was. Turns out he snared the male mystic and starts drinking his soul while it got hella cold in there. I want to talk about a conversation that Aelin and Arobin have in Queen of Shadows. Aelin says, when I was in the castle, I encountered some of the men he'd corrupted, men who'd fed off that power and became stronger. And when I was in Wendland, I faced one of his generals who had been seized by a demon prince of unimaginable power. Arobone,
All
Arobin
bonum.
shares that it's Narok. Aelin said they devour life. A prince like that can suck the soul right out of you, feed on you. Of course, Aelin is talking about Valg, but Valg eats souls, just like Thanatos.
Mhm.
We also learned the Karen Kui.
Oh, I love that you think I'm going to know this. Mm-mm.
We did not. I have not gotten to this. Once again, guys, I am rereading Throne of Glass while I'm listening to it so I can learn how to say things. So this is wrong. We also learned that the Karen Kui, aka Big Spiders, eat souls and are Valg in Tower of Dawn. So Nesquik is running from them and says, "Fire!" Nezrin breathed as they hurtled toward the apex of the peak. She said, "All Valg hate fire. They hate fire. For the spiders devouring life, devouring souls. They were as Valg as Erewhon, hailed from the same dark hell." And then Nezrin said, "Get the flint from your pocket," and she ordered the prince. I also want to bring up in Air of Fire, it said there are many different races of Valg, creatures that even your darkest nightmare would flee from. They are ruled by the princes, who themselves are made of shadow and despair and hatred and have no bodies to occupy save those that they infiltrate. There aren't many princes, but I once witnessed an entire legion of Fey warriors devoured by 6 of them within hours. So you're saying that there's a chance that there could be 7 princes. I don't know. All have walked between worlds, and there are different races.
Hmm.
Makes me think about when Hunt had this conversation with Apollyon that I discussed in chapter 21. At the beginning of the chapter, it says Hunt sat in a simple folding chair at the bottom of an abyss, nothing but blackness around him, the only light coming from the faint glow cast by his body. There was no beginning or end to the perpetual night. In chapter 33, I talked about how Ghislaine described Valg, Puck.
I know.
Legend has it that they're the origin of evil. They are blackness and despair incarnate. And then at the end of chapter 21, the seething darkness and those leathery wings vanished. Again, tying this to the Valg, Kaltain was hearing flapping wings. Nehemia talked about wings they heard in the Farian Gap. Are those the same wings from hell or Morath? I don't know why I said Morath all weird. Are those the same wings from hell or Morath? Or could Kaltain have been hearing something completely different from those in the Farian Gap? The point being, I have more suspicions on the Princes of Hell and if they are Valg, or do they just have Valg-like qualities? That's a lot of soul-eating darkness going on in the worlds out there for it to be multiple species.
Yeah, they have to be related.
Just all those comparisons about eating souls,
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of questions. Shocking.
And it is.
Shit's going crazy. Thanatos threatens them with, "I shall taste all of you like this, you and your masters, once the door between our worlds is open again, starting with you, Starborn." And then ice explodes across everything. Ethan hopped down and tried to save the mail that the Prince of the Ravine had a grip on and pulled the other 2 mystics out. The astronomer did not like this. All the lights come back on, and the astronomer has had enough and tells them to get out while a mystic is screaming to go back. Bryce is like, "Sorry," as they were kicked out. Bryce thought for a moment about freeing the fire sprites the astronomer had in his ring, but she was responsible. Tharian tells Bryce that she was right and all of this was a bad idea. Bryce is pissed at the whole situation and starts yelling at Tharian. He's like, "The River Queen has my family at her mercy." And she's like, "Wham, mine is at the mercy of old Veneer." She breaks up with him, but turns and faces Mordok.
Chapter 40. So, Mordok seems to be a real dick and gets hard off torturing people. Tharian and Ethan stuck around to be allies for Bryce, even just for a little bit. And once they rounded the corner, Bryce couldn't help but look at Tharian and be like, "Damn, I love this dumbass. Sucker for that BDE." Tharian tells her he won't go back and let him know if he hears about Emil. Okay, to be fair, I would probably forgive Tharian extremely quick too. I just know deep in my bones he's a hottie. And I was wondering from our last episode, Kai, have you done any research on mermaids and their sex lives?
I love that you asked because yes, I did. I took the time to Google it for everyone else. I actually called my sister and I started talking about mermaid wieners to her, and she's like, "I gotta go." I was like, "You don't want to talk about mermaid wieners with me?" She's like, "No, I'm offended."
Okay. Rude.
Okay, so there's a lot of different options for mermaid wieners. Okay, so the first option is like a cat, which is fucking gross.
No.
I don't even want to get into detail about that one. The other one is it just hangs out with the wang out, like
No.
just the scales stop. But I think mermaids should have a kangaroo pouch.
Mm.
That way they can just unhook a normal wiener. But then I'm like, does the wiener have scales?
I feel like it would be scaly. Yeah, so we did
But
look
okay, so which way do the scales go?
up or down. Oh, good question. Yeah, we brought this to Instagrams, and the people seemed to think that it would just plop out when it was ready to roll. And that,
So I think the kangaroo pouch is like the safest option to say
yeah,
like how
it's almost like a trap door.
I have a PhD in mermaid weenies.
Yeah, mermaid weenies. Yeah, I feel like there's like almost like a scale trap door, and then when it's ready to go down, it's like it just pops out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Once again, I think my kangaroo pouch
yeah,
theory is like the best one because every other visual is not okay. I can't come back from the things that I Googled. Whatever list I'm on, I cannot come back from that either.
no, the FBI actually is probably like, I don't know if we want to track her anymore. You know?
I think that that's when they stopped, honestly. Like,
Yeah,
I think my identity theft will also stop because people are like, I do not want to be associated with mermaid queens.
and that's fair. So this is an educational podcast, and you are welcome. Hunt and
The
Isaiah,
fact that I was so knowledgeable on that is concerning.
yeah, you spoke with conviction. So, mhm. Yep. Hunt and Isaiah are eating grub, and Athy is venting that staying in the barracks really fucking sucks because they were no longer waiting until after winter solstice to get it in. He filled him, he filled him in on why he took off, and then Hunt's unwanted buddy cop, Baxian, shows up. Baxian's like, dude, I didn't snitch to Lydia. They want to know what the hell changed, and he's like, none of your beeswax. Things just changed. Isaiah and Baxian measured their dicks right on the table before Tiberian passed. Nope, peaced out. Could you imagine just at lunch at the committee, and all of a sudden the dicks just plop out and start measuring? Just, it's not what happened, but that's what it felt like.
You know, in this world, yes, I
Mhm.
could imagine it.
Hunt and Maxian ended up having a little bonding moment when they broed out and played video games together, which was pretty cute. And later, Bryce and Hunt had phone sex, which begs me to ask the question, Kylie, have you ever had phone sex?
Do you think I could ever be serious enough for that? Because I would just like start giggling and be like, I tucked your wiener in between your thighs.
I have never had phone sex. I've sexted. I've never had phone sex.
Like, I've never even sexed it. I just like, it's so unserious. And I just, I couldn't, I giggle. Like, I'm not mature enough for phone sex in any form.
That makes sense for you, to be honest. He's like, Kylie sexting. Ooh, is your wiener plopping out?
Ooh, are your nipples hard?
And then just randomly, do you think dragons have nipples? In the middle of your phone sex.
Once again, I am positive the FBI has stopped tracking me at
Yeah.
this point because, yeah, we have talked about milking dragons and stuff. So,
Which we never really got to the bottom of, guys. So if you've been here with us since
book
Empyrean,
four.
book 4, we're getting our answer.
Well, the next Empyrean book, we will figure out if you can milk those fucking drags.
Okay, now I picture him milking a drag and then afterwards them taking their little cigarettes and smoking.
Was that as good for you as it was for me?
So I got one more paragraph, guys, and then we're done with the episode. Therian reported back to the River Queen. She told him the whole Second Light thing was true, but perhaps there was something past Second Light. No word on Emil yet. She's like, cool, I'll talk soon. And then she skedaddled. Therian couldn't help but think there was a better way to fight this war. I'm now just picturing milking drags and cigarettes, and I can't get over it.
Well, this just to bring drags back to Crescent City. Drugs can kill a prince from hell, so
It's all related.
imagine if you had to like milk them to get their firepower.
So, like, they're like really going for it.
They're just riding the dragons. Hold on, you got to roll the thumb if you've ever milked anything.
They have lactation consultants before they go fight Venom.
You know what? If that is my future career goal, to be a lactation consultant for dragons at Basgiath.
You know what? You are going to do
Dream big.
so well in that profession. We are a court of dreamers, and you're going to make it happen.
I'm going to be the only one, so I will be top tier. I want to be the very best that no one ever was.
The godmother of dragon consultation, lactation. So yeah, that's our episode, guys. We really, we said some good things. We taught you about some stuff. Mermaid weens, dragon nips,
And milking drags.
Yeah. We gave you some theories too, okay? But thanks for
Okay, so wait, hold on. How do mermaids give birth? Because okay, so when and do female mermaids have more than one nipple? Like, do they have a litter?
Well, I hope they have at least 2 nipples.
Well, yeah, for sure. But like, is it like a cat situation? Do the female mermaids do they just have like their baby mers, like kittens floating in the water?
Yeah, what do babies do? What are baby merms doing? Are they just floating up? Like, I don't feel like baby mers can just like.
Do they leash them?
Deep
Little
thoughts.
seaweed leash.
Well, more questions, more deep diving to be had. Thanks for giggling through our journey with us today. We have new episodes every Tuesday. Join us next week as we get into chapters 41 through 48 of Crescent City, House of Sky and Breath.
Make sure you follow us on social media for all of our latest updates, theories, and more new book goofing. Don't forget to hit subscribe and give us a review wherever you listen. All links are in our info, you giggling gal pals. We will see you next week to talk about more dragon milking.